Loading. Welcome to Access the Animus.
Hello everyone and welcome to a new video here on Access the Animus. As you might know, on Friday, March the 12th, Narrative Director Darby McDevitt sat down with hosts Yves Magid and Ellie Vengala to discuss the ending of Assassin's Creed Valhalla. In this video, we're going to feature the most interesting and relevant bits that came out of said interview, ranging from the discussion about the various Isu clans scattered across the world, to the early ideas about the dual protagonists, what really happened with the Yggdrasil device, and which or who was the actual reason why the Earth risked to be destroyed again in the modern day, just to name a few topics. The video is designed to show you what we believe to be the most important bits of the interview in case you don't have the time to watch the whole thing, and also for future reference in case you'd like to check back on a specific statement, and for that we have prepared a dedicated timestamp section in the description. But of course, to get the bigger picture, we suggest you watch the whole interview, whose link you can find in the description as well. If you enjoyed the video, please consider liking it, subscribing to our channel and turning the notifications on so you don't miss any of our future updates. And with that out of the way, let's dive into the most interesting revelations of the Assassin's Creed Valhalla ending discussion.
And then at a certain point, the ending of trapping Layla in there in this simulation and releasing Basim, that came pretty early. But there was a very last minute not last minute, but there was, later in production, I remember Ash said, why don't we switch to him as the modern day protagonist? And that became a kind of an interesting idea, because I think the original idea was once Layla's gone, maybe you go back and you just play as Shaun or Rebecca, and you get to choose. You can just swap back and forth between Shaun and Rebecca and play as them, and that Basim would be sort of out in the world, mysterious. Okay, we can't wait to see what he does next. Is he a good guy or a bad guy? But I remember Ash said, no, let's actually play as him. That'll be intriguing. So we did that. Vinland and the AC3 callbacks there, that didn't come until around 2019, where Yves himself said, hey, the Vikings made trips to North America. Could we depict that? And we said, well, timeline-wise, the Vinland sagas, as they're called, they're not set. They're set in about 1000 AD. In our game's 70 AD. So it's a little anachronistic, but we liked his suggestion. So we thought about it. We said, how would we do it? And we said, well, the Templars are always one step ahead of actual history anyway. They would have hidden their trip to North America. So we decided to kind of frame it that way, where the Order of the Ancients had a reason to go to North America. Oh, hey, there's a moment here that was perfect for this, just like the Ezio quote in Jotunheim, where Gunnlod is talking and she's saying, I've been trying to talk to the future and send messages to the future.
Perhaps another day, another thread. Come. We must not keep father waiting.
And she turns around and walks away, and then you hear Ezio go, who are you?
Who are you?
It's actually not the same voice actor. We thought, let's get an Ezio sound alike, because it's a very small Easter egg.
The mind-blowing thing, though, is that if you go back and you play or you watch the ending of AC2, when Ezio's in the vault in the Vatican and meets Minerva for the first time, the first thing he says is, who are you?
Who are you?
Yeah. And then she talks about how she's had all these different names throughout history, and it's like, oh my God, this is all been here.
Who are you?
All the cities in Assassin's Creed Valhalla are direct homages to the cities in AC1, down to the character you kill, the assassination setup, everything. We did a one-to-one homage. And that's an idea that actually we had on that I pitched on Origins but never got made, because we were pitching Origins as kind of like a reboot, not a reboot, but a refreshing of the brand. And I thought it'd be fun to refresh the brand with an homage to AC1. But that didn't get done, but we revived the idea here and it worked out. It started to feel restrictive to say that, let's say like Jupiter, to say Jupiter is also Amun and is also Odin, because what that does is it kind of mashes all the cultures into one big pile, and it prevents you from exploring new ideas. So explicitly for Origins, and then later in this game, we said let's say definitively that the Norse mythology represents a northern Isu clan, and that the Egyptian Isu are an African Isu clan, and they are different than the Capitoline triad, the Mediterranean Isu, let's say, the Greco-Roman, right? And that would allow us a much bigger place to play with. It would allow us to say like these stories happened up here and these stories happened down here, and so that's where we kind of expanded that and took it in a different direction in Origins. When Odyssey came out and they had this dual protagonist thing, it was important for me and for Ash to make it work with Assassin's Creed lore, right? Make it work with the idea that you were still replaying someone's memory. So the very first thing I did when I got on the project was pitch two different ideas for how we handle this. The first idea I pitched was we could do a dual protagonist thing where the protagonist is a male Viking and the female protagonist, female version, is actually Layla projecting herself onto the Avatar, which we kind of did in AC1, right? Ezio and Altair and Desmond look exactly the same, but we didn't do that for Ezio and Connor, right? Ezio looks a little different than Desmond, and Connor looks very different, right? So because of those early games, there was this idea developed that you could just project your own avatar. And I think there'd be a cool version of that where you could have now you could do it with Basim, for instance, where there's a female protagonist in the past, but Basim could project his face onto that because he doesn't want to, wear a mask. He wants to just be Basim. And there's a cool way that you could play with that, where if you were playing as Basim in the past or as Layla, he or she could comment on what she was seeing, and you could have like slightly different dialogue, or you're just playing the historical character. That was the first version I pitched. So an avatar projection or not, right? Then the second one I pitched was, or we could do a sage where you are the reincarnation of Aita. So you're a female Viking, but you are also the reincarnation of Aita, so you can switch to looking like Aita, and we could tell that story. Those were the two versions I pitched, and I think Ash thought about it for a while, and he had been reading a lot of Norse mythology, and he was really taken with the character of Odin and Loki especially, and so he came back with a kind of a counter proposal, like, let's do the sage idea, but let's make Eivor the reincarnation of Odin, because Odin is this perfect sort of mix between a leader, but also a wandering spirit and a lone wolf. And so we all kind of were like, okay, that's a good way to do it. And who wouldn't want to like realize they were playing the reincarnation of Odin? That's kind of cool as well. When Fulke captures Sigurd, and he starts, if you read her notes, her torture notes in her sanctum that we call it, at the minute that Sigurd screams out, "I am the Lord of Justice," she knows, oh, that's Tyr. That's like Tyr from the mythology. Maybe I'll cut off his arm because that will trigger his old trauma. So even that is not a prophecy. It's like a self-fulfilling prophecy. She's realizing that he's Tyr, and she knows that Tyr lost his arm in the mythology. So she's going to do it again to trigger his memory. And it does. And it works, because when he comes back, he's all like, "I'm Tyr, woo." the idea of the prophecy came actually late, not late, but a little later than most other things. I think originally the idea was that Eivor was going to get a prophecy that she would not enter Valhalla. Like, no matter what she did on Earth, she would never get to sort of heaven, right? And we actually worked with that for a while. But what was sort of unsatisfying about that was that if you get a prophecy that something's not going to happen, then it's hard to see what you do in life to make it happen. Like, what do I do? Kill more people and see if they let me in? I'm not sure how to fix that, right? So it took a while, but we twisted it into something that was way more actionable and more human, which was you will get all the glory you seek, but you will betray your brother in the process. Now that's something that I think people can relate to, but it's also something you can worry about as the game goes on. You're like, oh, am I betraying him right now? Ooh. The Animus Anomalies were an idea that we talked about also in Origins. It was just a way that I'm always looking for ways to get the present day more fully integrated into the game and not have it be this sort of stop-start, like, here's the present day, now go back in the past, now stop, you go back in the present day, because there's not a whole lot of gameplay in the present day. So for people who are very gameplay oriented, it's very frustrating to stop and just have this sort of like story that unfolds for 15, 20 minutes, and then you jump back in. So when we agreed to do Animus Anomalies this time, we said, okay, so what's the reward for doing them? Why are they there? What's their purpose? And very quickly we came on this idea, let's use it as a way to peel back the curtain and show you real Isu history. And I think then when we started working in the Loki story and the Odin story, we thought, okay, let's use it as a way to show how these gods or these Isu were reborn. And also attack on the end, let's show how Loki actually managed to be reborn. So when you see the Odin drinking in the sort of the mythological Ragnarok, technically his memories end about when he drinks this and walks out. Technically they should end as soon as he drinks it and then the magic goes up to the tree. They should end there, but we cheated just by about 10 seconds. He walks out the door and disappears, and that's then because the Animus Anomaly video is actually from Loki's memories. Now you can actually see how Loki. You can actually go beyond the point where they all walk out the door because it's Loki's memories he's putting in there. He spied on all of this and he watched it all happen because he sneaks in.
Now that you say that, it makes perfect sense that the Animus glitches are from Loki's perspective, because by the time I finished them, I had beaten the game and I was playing as Basim during them, not Layla. And the first time you encounter one as Basim, he says, "Oh, like another one of my memory shards or my Animus glitches." Yeah. And then you realize that it's him and Alethea talking.
We're saying that he put them there because he wanted whoever was in the Animus, Layla, he's trying to tell his story, right? He's trying to say, this is what happened to me. These are all the things that happened to me. I want you to have some sympathy for me. Odin, captured and kidnapped my son, and so I'm getting revenge for these things, and all these things. He's trying to say, like, look, I have a perspective on this too, so I want you to see this. Well, the first thing that came was that it was functional. We needed a reason why the world was in danger again. And we sort of pitched this idea that when Desmond turned on the machine in AC3, that what he was doing was he was sort of activating all the existing temples around the world and sort of overclocking them so that they would create a magnetic field that would shield the Earth from this solar flare. But that once he turned it on, and that they remained on, and that would allow Basim to be like, oh, I'm in here now and I can move around because now they're back on. So I'm going to lead someone to me. So I'm going to overclock it. I'm going to mess around with it. And I'm going to, so technically Basim is the reason why the Earth was going to get destroyed again. So Yggdrasil, that machine was created for the magnetic field, the purpose of the magnetic field. Then we decided, what's the grand version of this? What can it do? And we thought, yeah, I don't exactly know how this all came about, but eventually we got to this idea that, like, well, if all these Norse warriors, if all these Vikings, if they want to get to Valhalla, would it make sense that they would all return to this place and they would create a perfect version of their of life for themselves,
Right.
and that they could just live in and forget about the outside world, like let's stay here forever. And so this is just one like small version of it. It's like this kind of looping Valhalla, which is supposed to be the ideal world. So I think there was this idea that Sigurd goes there and he's like, okay, let's start the Valhalla program so I can just go to Valhalla and pew. I'm sure there's lots of programs in, like, this is, I think, maybe something people have missed, but that simulation device is probably capable of simulating anything. Like you feed a future calculation into it, say, okay, give me New York 2012. Okay, that's how they found Desmond. Maybe that's one of the places that they were searching and reading, calculating. Maybe they were getting in there like the Matrix and like walking around looking for things. But that simulation device is not just Valhalla. It's like everything. It can do everything. It can recreate any calculation you feed to it. But for these Norse people who want to go to Valhalla, Sigurd is just like, Valhalla, run the Valhalla program. I'm born there, and I'm going to live there forever, and it's going to be amazing. There's a part of me that thinks that the assassins don't need to change that, or the hidden ones don't need to change that much to become the assassins. For me, so I hint in a piece of writing on that Shaun writes, what he implies is that maybe, because the term Hashashin is actually a pejorative. It's like there was this the assassins were a historical group in Persia, and they were called the Hashashin by people who didn't like them. They were like, you guys are a bunch of hash smokers. Like, you guys are crazy, and you get high and you go kill people. And so there's a precedent for whenever like groups, whenever people lob insults at a group, that you will take on that insult as your own, and you will turn it into your own. And so I kind of imply through Shaun's notes that the assassins just said, you call us Sheen? Fine, we'll call ourselves that. It's no big deal. So maybe the hidden ones don't have to change all that much, because the hidden ones and the assassins, the philosophies are basically the same, right? They have their tenets, they have the same goals. So I don't know that it needs to change that much for the assassins to be born. But the Templars and the Order of the Ancients, we make a very clear distinction in Valhalla about how they're different and how they're the same.
And that was it for today's video. What do you think of these statements and revelations? Which was the one that surprised you the most? Let us know in the comments below. We'd really like to discuss these topics with you all. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you in our next video.